And we are now live.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Town of Ajax Committee of Adjustments meeting for this Wednesday, September the 24th, 2025. This meeting, I'd like to now call to order at 7:01 p.m. This meeting is being held in person in Council Chambers at Ajax Town Hall and is also being live streamed for public viewing on the internet pursuant to the Committee of Adjustment Terms of Reference and Meeting Procedures. If we encounter any technical difficulties, we may take a brief recess while they are resolved. Thank you for your patience. We'll now proceed with the meeting. For those of you joining us in person this evening, and I see there's quite a few, if you haven't done so already, if you are speaking either for or against an application, I'll ask you to just come up to the podium there that I'm pointing at on my left. And there's a sign-up sheet there. If you could just provide your name and your email address so the minutes of the meeting could also be sent over to you afterwards. I'll now also like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is situated within the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas, more specifically the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, signatories of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous people. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support, truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action in acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. Before moving on to the application portion of this meeting, I'd like to confirm with the committee members whether there are any disclosures of interest from anybody. Okay, seeing none, then I'll look for a motion to adopt the meeting minutes from the previous meeting. Ken, see you first. Can I get a seconder? Bernadette, saw you next, I guess. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, then I'll look for a vote. And the vote has been carried. We've now adopted the meeting minutes for the August meeting. The Committee of Adjustment derives its jurisdiction and authority from the Planning Act. The committee is responsible for considering applications which seek to authorize the following: minor variances from the provisions of the town zoning bylaw, extensions, enlargements, or variations of the legal non-conforming use of any land, building, or structure, permitting the use of any land, building, or structure for any purpose that, in the opinion of the committee, conforms with the provisions of the zoning bylaw, where the uses permitted in the zoning bylaw are defined only in general terms. Consent to sever a new lot from an existing lot, consent to alter the existing boundaries of a lot, such as lot additions and lot line adjustments, consent to register rights of way and easements over land, consent to sell, mortgage, charge, or enter into any agreement for more than 21 years for a portion of land, and a validation of land title when there has been an error in the description of the land. When considering minor variances, the committee is to assess whether the general intent and the purpose of both the Town of Ajax official plan and the zoning bylaw is being maintained. The proposal is desirable for the appropriate development and or use of the subject land and or building or structure, and the variance is minor in nature. When considering consents, the committee must ensure proposals conform to the Region of Durham and the Town of Ajax official plans and have regard to the matters outlined under the Planning Act. In all scenarios, the committee must ensure consistency with the in effect provincial policy statements and conformity with the in effect provincial plans. The process for tonight's meeting will be conducted in the following manner. The applicant and or agent will be called upon, and at their discretion, they may provide a brief description of the minor variance or the consent application that they have applied for. The committee members that you see here in front of you may ask questions of the applicant and or agent, after which anyone with a direct interest in the application will be given the opportunity to speak either for or against that particular application. Once a motion is put forward by a committee member, there will, however, be no further input from the applicant and or agent or anyone else having interest in the application. After a decision is made, a notice will be sent out and there will be a 20-day appeal period. The decision of the committee may be appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal, or the OLT, by the applicant or a specified person or public body, as outlined in the Planning Act. Please note that third-party appeals meaning appeals from neighboring landowners or members of the public are not permitted. The decision will become final and binding if no appeals are received during that 20-day appeal period. If a building permit or other approvals are required for the project, they may be filed during that appeal period. However, please note that no permits or approvals will be issued until the appeal period is over, and the decision then becomes final and binding. A respectful decorum during this evening's proceedings is expected of all present at all times. Let me now take a moment to introduce you to the committee members presiding over the procedures this evening. For my furthest right is Bernadette Santiago, Ken Elliott, Amanda Dunn, Tomas Baca. I'm the chair of the committee, Wasif Ahmed. To my left are esteemed staff from the AV department at Town of Ajax and the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustments, Henry Singh. The agenda is put up on the screen, just projected to my left, over my left shoulder. And as you'll see, that the first application for tonight's meeting is application A2725, submitted for 283-8033 Ontario Inc. for 527 Kingston Road West. Is the applicant or agent here this evening?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
I can, Mr. Khan. I will just, before I hand over the mic to you, sir, I will just confirm with town staff whether notice was served for this particular application for 527 Kingston Road and whether any responses were received.
Through the chair, notice was served and no responses were received.
Okay, perfect. So good evening, Mr. Khan. I understand, so you're here as the agent for this application?
That's correct.
Okay. The committee does hold, as you'll probably see on the screen as well, that a staff report that was put together by the Town of Ajax planning staff that does recommend approval for the application, subject to a condition that the subject variance applies only to the proposed development of the subject lands through the site plan application SP 224, substantially in accordance with the drawings that were submitted with this application, or this decision shall become null and void. Are you okay with that condition?
Yes, I am.
Okay, then I'll hand over the floor to you, and perhaps you can tell myself, the committee members, and the audience here a little bit about your project.
Okay, so this is currently a single dwelling, currently zoned as commercial, being used for a health spa. We have proposed to turn it into a mixed-use residential building with 2 commercial units at the bottom of the ground floor as permitted by VC3 and 18 apartment residential dwellings on top. Everything else conforms. These are just, everything else conforms. The 2 items which are listed in the minor variance are the parking. We are short by, I think, 3 or 4. And we are actually short by ½ a meter of the landscape buffer for the setback. The city staff is supportive of both of these variances, and they're very minor in nature. If anybody has any specific questions, I can answer that.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'll look to the committee members to see if they have any questions. Bernadette?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just had a question about the design and landscaping. I'm hoping that you can comment on how you anticipate to mitigate or reduce the buffer with respect to the design and landscaping from 9 meters to 8 meters. I know it's only 1 meter, but what exactly are your intentions with respect to the design and landscaping to mitigate the reduced buffer?
It's actually ½ a meter. I think what we are proposing is 8.4. So we have very short, like a 0.6 meter. And I think all the adequate provisions have been provided. The city asked us to put in, a bicycle rack, a waste bin, a bench, anything and everything they've proposed, we have incorporated that. But if you have a very specific question, I can try to answer it. But we have conformed with everything requirements, all the requirements in terms of landscaping, tree preservation, or any amenities which are required for the pedestrians.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
Amanda?
Through you, Chair, to the applicant. There's no loading spaces proposed for the commercial uses. I'm going to assume the commercial sizes are below the rate that the zoning bylaw would need loading spaces. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, Ken?
Through you, Mr. Chair, would I be making a correct assumption that for the driveway that's coming out to Kingston Road, that it would be a right-in, right-out?
That is my understanding, and I think that would be the best foot forward. But so far, that's my understanding as well.
Thank you.
If I can direct that question, if I may, piggyback that, Ken, to town staff, right in only from Kingston? You wouldn't be able to make a left into this project?
Through the chair, that would be subject to the regions and the town's transportation department's comments. From my understanding, this portion of Kingston Road doesn't have any center median at this point in time, so the existing site probably operates with a full movement access where left turns are possible. The only thing is that moving into the future, it's my understanding that the region and Metrolinx are working towards a bus rapid transit system on Highway 2. So there is a potential of possibly a median bus lane, perhaps, and an island that could restrict movements. But ultimately, that isn't one of the things that's, I guess, directly being considered by this minor variance. But like in terms of existing conditions, there's nothing preventing left turns, but depending on, I guess, the traffic analysis, if delays or safety issues are noticed by staff, then there is a chance the access could be restricted. I believe the applicant has been, I guess, well, the agent who's online has been working with town staff, so he would be, I guess, have been in correspondence with transportation staff and would be able to comment on this particular point.
Okay. Thank you. Well, it sounds like, Mr. Khan, I guess you wouldn't know what the region's plans are in terms of that either. And does it matter to you at this point?
Yeah, I don't, and I concur with Henry because the BRT is going to be, crossing directly across the property from us on Kingston Road. I'm more than likely there will be some type of enforcement preventing a left turn into the property. So I'm not worried about that, and because the city and the transportation have gone through many iterations with our transportation study, so I'm sure they've considered those aspects as well.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Yeah. I'll ask mine now then. So based on the 1.25 ratio, this building would have needed to have 23 parking spaces. Based on the 1.0 ratio, Mr. Khan, you would be then only providing 18. So it's nominally about 5 spots short. That includes your, does that include your commercial parking?
No. Commercial and visitor is separate.
Okay, perfect. And then the second question I have is for the, where would, in the event that there is an influx of demand on those parking spots, those 18 rather, where's the nearest public parking that's available to the residents or visitors in this particular project?
I'm not too sure which one has been specified by the transportation study, but we can look into it and find out. But I'm sure they've provided something in there because the transportation study was accepted by the town and the staff.
Okay. Henry, would you know by any chance where the nearest public parking would be to this project?
Through the chair, to the best of my understanding, I believe the closest area with legal on-street parking would most likely be Lincoln Street, which is to the south of the property. It's roughly here. However, I did want to point out that the 18 spaces that you're referring to are for resident parking. The proposed development will still have visitor parking that's supplied at the zoning bylaws minimum requirements. So at that point, it could be up to the residents to basically just coordinate and to determine whether or not this development has a sufficient amount of parking based on the vehicular needs. And if they had anybody visiting, for instance, it could be expected that they may be using the visitor parking, and that would have to be coordinated with, I guess, the building management, for instance, for like visitor parking passes.
Okay. All right. Any other last minute questions from committee members? Okay. Again, we're on application A2725 for 527 Kingston Road West. If anybody here physically in the audience is here to speak either for or against, if you can just come up to the podium, ma'am. And then again, there's a sign-in sheet there, if you wouldn't mind, maybe just starting off with just jotting in the information there. Appreciate that. Yes, please. Gives me a chance to sip my coffee, so it's a stalling technique. And I know we have a big crowd, so we're not limited to just one speaker. If anybody else is either to speak here, to speak either for or against this application at 527 Kingston Road West, feel free to just follow up. Okay, ready when you are, and maybe we'll start with your name.
Tree?
Okay, can we call you Michelle?
Yes.
Okay, good evening to you.
Hi. I live right next door to this development property. And while I've had concerns and many discussions with various people with the city and with Mr. Khan, I was sort of taken aback by this variance paper that I received. In a way, I know the city does try to send these applications out, but as a recipient, you know, it would have been much nicer if the city could try to send out these letters earlier so that we can have time to reflect and to think about what the variance does involve and entail to us and the impact it will have. Okay, so that's my first comment.
Just on that, Michelle, if I may, and that's very valid, when did you receive it, just so the committee knows?
The letter was sent out September the 11th. I received it on this past Monday.
Like 2 days ago.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
So, so I've tried to write a little bit to explain why I'm. My main opposition has to do with the 1 meter variance, changing it from 9 meters to 8 meters for a buffer. Okay, as it is, this building is going to cause serious repercussions to my own property. And like I said, I've talked with the city, and it doesn't seem that I have much say in what's going to happen. I am concerned about the increased size to this building and the lessening of landscape. Major problem would be water and drainage issues. It's my belief that an underground stream flows through our properties. Spring flooding and flooded basement was always a major concern every spring. When I first moved here, my neighbors on either side of me let me know that they were also having water issues, especially in the spring. Because of this, I put in a sump pump. In the past 12 to 13 years, since I put in the sump pump, my basin of my sump pump has never been dry, even in this very dry summer. According to an article from the Burlington Toronto by Callum McMallory, dated August 29, 2024, A recent study by My Choice, an insurance comparison platform based in Toronto, Ajax is considered the most flood-prone city in Ontario, earning 4.6 out of 5. I would like the council to be aware of the potential flooding dangers this building and making it even bigger can create, and the possibility of lawsuits that may follow. Another meter to this building will only ensure that my property will definitely not receive any sunlight whatsoever coming from the west starting at noon, creating a more destructive environment for moisture damage to my property, mildew, mold, fungus, and creating serious breathing issues for anyone living at 519. Another meter to the proposed building will create other additional issues and concern with driving into and out of my driveway, especially trying to drive out onto Kingston Road. There could be serious issues blocking the view of my vehicle or any other vehicles coming out of our property with the added meter, and on Kingston Road, which is a very busy highway. Before the council agrees to this minor variance, I really wish and ask that the city guarantees the proposed development is feasible. The city has the infrastructure necessary to support such a large building: sewage, drainage, air quality. An arborist report and a guarantee that any tree damage to my property will be dealt with by the city at no expense to myself and with the appropriate compensation. A recent servicing and storm management report for 527 and properties nearby. I request that. I would also like a noise and fire and light impact report, parking, transportation study regarding the flow of traffic onto Kingston Road. With all the vehicles coming out of 527, what will be the impact on the homes nearby? And I would like another study by the city that would provide reassurance that my property will not unduly negatively be impacted by this development.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Michelle.
you.
Just while you're there, can we pull up page 5 of the report, please? Just page 5. It's the comment section. Thank you. So, Michelle, if I may, on behalf of the committee, just kind of highlight to you. So every agenda item that comes in for every application, and this will be following suit for the rest of the evening as well, we receive a staff report that's put together by the Town of Ajax Planning Department. I'm highlighting this section specifically because what you'll notice in here is that it's gone through the Town of Ajax, this particular application, and this application is not the site plan application, which I'll talk about in a minute, but this is specifically for the two things that the minor variance is looking for, which is the parking alleviation of that 1.25 ratio, which is what the bylaw is, versus the application is seeking 1.0. So instead of 23 parking spots for the 18 dwellings that are being created as part of this project, they're going to provide 18 versus 23. That's for the occupants. For the visitors, they're fine. There's no issue. They're complying with the zoning bylaw, so there's no issue there. So we're talking about 5 parking spots, and we're talking about, I know it says 9 versus 8. It's actually 8.4. So it's actually a 0.6 reduction in buffer that they're looking for. The buffer is usually 9 meters, that's the bylaw, and they're actually looking for 8.6. It's been rounded up, and or rounded down, and that's why it says 8. But as I think the first question that came up, we're literally talking about 0.3 of a meter-ish, if you will. So which is about a foot if we talk about it. Yep. The other thing that you'll notice, so transportation, they did have an issue, so I do want to highlight that. So this particular application is still going to go through a full, what they call a site plan application. That's the committee, or that's the team for the town of Ajax that'll actually be reviewing most of the things that you just mentioned. So this committee, within its jurisdiction, is only looking at that parking and that buffer, if you will, of 0.6 to 1, and 0.4 to 1, and that's it. But operations and environmental services had no issue. If we can scroll down just a touch, I think engineering services on the next page. So engineering services, fire and emergency, those things that you were asking about, they have looked at this particular application, again, just with the lens of those two topics of parking and the buffer, and they've had no comments. But they will definitely be involved. All of these teams will be involved when they're doing the site plan application. Mm-hmm. So that isn't us. So I just wanted to kind of just highlight that to you. I can appreciate your comments. If I was the neighbor next door, I would probably be up here and doing exactly what you're doing. But I would trust that the town of Ajax, and I would just stay on top of those guys in terms of making sure that the site plan application is, and I have no doubt that they'll be paying the right amount of diligence to it.
Yeah, and I mean, my main concern is, I know it's only a couple of centimeters, it's not a full meter, but that is my concern, okay?
Fair enough.
Right now, it is only going to be 1.8 meters from my property line. It is going to be 3 stories high, and there is going to be the whole area is going to be a solid wall. And I do have serious concerns.
Right. Okay. Right. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for being here. Is there anybody else here to speak either for or against this application? Again, we're on 527 Kingston Road West project for application A2725. Okay. Town staff, do we have anybody online to speak either for or against this application?
Through the chair, we do not have anybody who signed up for virtual attendance aside from the agent who is currently with us.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Then seeing no other points of discussion, then I'll look for a motion from the committee. Tomas?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve application 827-25, subject to all staff conditions on the basis that it is minor in nature, desirable for the appropriate development and use of the property, and in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Okay, motion noted. Can I get a seconder? Ken? And is there any discussion on the motion as presented? Okay, seeing none, then I'll look for a vote. Okay. And the vote has been passed unanimously. The motion, rather, has been passed unanimously, Mr. Khan. So your project, looking for those 2 minor variances in regards to the minimum landscape buffer of 8 meters and the apartment dwelling for the resident dwelling parking rate of 1 parking space has been approved this evening. It'll now be subject to the 20-day appeal period I talked about at the beginning.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
All right. Next on the agenda, we will move to application A2825. This application is for 3 Baker Road, and the application is seeking to permit a maximum aggregate area of 65 square meters for all platforms on the property that are more than 1.2 meters in height above finished ground level. The applicant has actually requested, in conjunction with town staff, a deferral of this topic to a future meeting of the Committee of Adjustments. The There's nobody here, as far as I know, to speak either on behalf of the application because it has been recommended for deferral. There is some information that is still being sought to complete this application, and that's why it is being deferred, potentially, depending on whether the committee will vote on it as a deferral. So that said, I'll look to see if there's a, actually, before I do that, Henry, sorry, can you confirm whether notice was served on this application?
Through the chair, notice was served. 3 pieces of correspondence were received, and they were sent to the committee members for consideration.
Okay, and I can confirm on behalf of the committee that we did receive those 3. Okay. That said, then I will look to see if there's a motion from committee members. Amanda?
I move that application A2825 be deferred to a future Committee of Adjustment meeting.
Okay, motion noted, seconded by Bernadette. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, then I'll look for a vote. And the vote has been carried. So this application A2825 for the civic address 3 Baker Road will now be deferred to a future Town of Ajax meeting, Committee of Adjustments meeting rather. And there will be, I believe, a notification again for when the next date is for the committee.
Through the chair, when the applicant or owner decide to proceed, a new notice will be circulated. So residents in the area will receive a mailer, and a new sign will be posted in front of the subject property.
Got it. So new sign, new mailers.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you confirming that. All right, so then we will move on to our next agenda item, which is minor variance application A2925. This is for 479 Bailey Street East, and the application is seeking to permit a minimum landscape buffer of 3 meters between parking spaces in an employment zone and the rear lot line that is adjacent to a residential zone, to permit a minimum landscape buffer of 3 meters between a type A arterial road, which is Bailey Street East in this case, and the parking spaces, and to permit a maximum of 56% of the required parking spaces in the front and exterior side yards of the property, provided that the spaces are used for visitor and employee parking and are arranged as follows. 1, a maximum of 2 rows of parking in the front yard between the building and Bailey Street East, and 2, a single row of a parking in the exterior side yard, which is between the building and Clayton Road, which you'll see in a map in a minute, to permit, and also to permit a minimum length of 8.9 meters and a minimum width of 3.5 meters for each loading space as well. Henry, can you confirm whether notice was served on this application and whether any responses were received?
Through the chair, notice was served. 1 piece of correspondence was received and forwarded to the committee members for consideration.
Okay, and again, on behalf of the committee, I can confirm that we did receive that correspondence. Is the applicant or agent here to speak for this particular project? Have you just walk up to the podium, sir? There is a sign-in sheet there. If I can just get you to sign in on that. Okay. Good evening to you.
Public, both here and online, thank you very much for having us. My name is Elijah Antflick. I am one of the developers and owners of this project. From the beginning, since we acquired the site, we have, of course, been cognizant of the fact that we are neighboring a residential subdivision. We have taken care in trying to create a project and design a project that would best respect those neighbors while still being able to move a project forward under our existing zoning permission, which is prestige employment. under that prestige employment designation and zoning, we are permitted to construct a broad range of light industrial, warehousing, some commercial, automotive, different types of uses. Again, we've really looked at compatibility and how to lay out the site properly. At one point in time, there was a single tenant building that we had contemplated with a loading at the rear of the building on the south side that would have accommodated larger tractor trailer type of trucks, more of a traditional warehouse type of facility, and realized that that's just not compatible with the neighboring subdivision. Therefore, we landed on this two-building concept. And what we've accomplished with this two-building concept is to contain all of the loading, and I would call it more of the, if I will, industrial type of uses, be it the garbage collection and the loading, to the rear of the buildings, which is in a central truck court. The buildings, therefore, serve as both a buffer to the residential to the south, as well as to the road to Bailey Street on the north. We've also tried to close it off as much as possible to Clayton. Now, I guess as well, I should mention that we are planning on splitting up these two buildings into multi-units. So again, these smaller type of units, would offer themselves to the uses permitted under the zoning, more along the lighter industrial type of use versus your heavier industrial, larger warehouse type of facilities. Now, if I will address, I also saw the communication from one of the neighbors, so I'll sort of work through those items and I think touch on the variance items. So with respect to the buffers, it's important to remember that the buffer variances that we're seeking are for the landscape buffers and not the building setbacks, which I believe the building setbacks to be a little bit more impactful for neighbors. In fact, on the building setbacks, we've again tried to locate everything more central to the site. We have 23 meters from the south lot line where only 9 is required, as well as that's the same on the front. So
Can I just repeat that for you? So I just want to make sure I
Yep.
heard that right. So you said the zoning bylaw would be 9 meters on the south side, and you're at 23 meters away from the housing,
away from our lot line.
from your lot line?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Sorry, please continue.
So pulling the buildings into the center creates more separation, which I think, as the neighbor identified, is important to them to have that separation. I would also like to point out that on Bailey Street, there is 4.2 meters being reserved for a future dedication of a widening of Bailey Street, as required by the region through our site plan process. This widening, I couldn't tell you when, in fact, they plan on taking it. It will be landscaped in the interim. This is something that could be years, decades away as far as the widening of Bailey Street. In the meantime, as I mentioned, it will be landscaped. We have connectivity to the multi-use path that is on Bailey. And as well, through the site plan process, I will mention that we've been working with staff to, in some way, lessen the impact of the reduced landscape, in particular on Bailey Street, and that is through enhanced landscaping, planting, screening of the parking, which also serves the other variance item as far as the parking in the front yard. We've added in landscape islands to the parking area to break it up, and we'll be planting those as well. So from the road, this isn't, it's not an offensive looking site by any means. We tried to dress it up as much as industrial can be dressed up. On the next item, with respect to the parking, again, and I'll revisit the idea that these are small units, small user operators, excuse me, for which we determined that parking is going to be important. We don't want parking spilling over into the residential area. We are oversupplying the parking that's required according to our zoning. And the reason for that is really a market function of these small units do require additional parking. This isn't one forklift operator in a warehouse. This is small businesses that have employees coming to the office or have visitors coming to the office. I will note to the neighbors, the parking, for example, on the south side, though we don't know exactly all of the users that are going to be in this facility. I do anticipate that a facility like this will operate during normal business hours and not throughout the night. Lastly, with respect to the loading space dimensions, again, pointing to the idea that these are small units and as such will be served by box vans, cube trucks, box vans, pickup trucks. This isn't a facility where somebody is going to locate if they have 53-foot truck requirements. It's clearly identified that that is not going to be permitted on the site. And with respect to the maneuverability, we thought it was very important as well to distinguish between the traffic that will be generated from vehicular traffic, visitors and employees of the site, versus the truck traffic, again, containing all of the truck traffic to that central dedicated truck court, where we do have enough mobility and maneuverability within the site for that to function properly. So in summary, we believe that we have brought forward a proposal that deals with the site context as best as possible. We are trying to respect the neighbors by internalizing the loading function. We're limiting heavy truck traffic through the type of use that we're marketing these type of units towards. We've provided substantial building setbacks and enhanced the landscaping as much as possible to shield that and to create a visually appealing site. So with that, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I'll look to see if anybody from the committee has a question. Amanda?
Through you, Chair, was there a transportation study that was submitted to staff as part of the site plan application or as part of this, more specifically that showed turning movements for the loading spaces that transportation was satisfied with?
Just activate the mic.
Control it. Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, indeed, there was a transportation study. We're now on to our third round of comments, submission through the site plan process. We have provided turning radii for the movements of the trucks that we anticipate being on site. As I mentioned, a 53-foot truck is not possible here. But that's also not what it's being marketed towards.
And what is the amount of surplus parking being provided over the requirement of the zoning bylaw?
Let me just reference the site plan, if you may. The requirement would be 74 spots, and we have 224.
Okay, and I think you mentioned you don't know all of the tenants as yet?
We do not know the tenants or the users of the space yet. I can say that like I mentioned, there's a broad range of uses permitted under the zoning. If it was warehousing, that would be something where you'd have 74 spots and it would function perfectly fine. The forklift operator that I mentioned, in a scenario like this where we are permitted more service commercial type of uses, in particular on the frontage of Bailey, we anticipate that those are heavier parking type of uses. Recreational is another use that sometimes can use up a lot of parking, be it a dance studio, karate, rock climbing gym, those sort of things. So we from a market standpoint, we believe the extra parking is important.
Okay. Okay, keep going.
I have no questions. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go for it.
For staff, the EV parking spaces that are shown, are those part of the required parking spaces or are those in addition to the required parking spaces?
Through the chair, it's my understanding that the EV spaces are primarily intended for the occupants, so like the employees or the owners of the individual industrial condo units. They would be part of, I suppose, the required parking supply, but overall, the entire property has a sizable surplus to accommodate a range of potential prestige employment uses in the future. In the event that, I guess, extremely parking intensive uses were proposed that manage to exceed the minimum required parking, those tenants would need to apply for minor variances for parking in the future. But overall, those EV spaces are really meant for employees and, I guess, owners rather than customers, perhaps.
And does the city have a minimum amount of EV parking spaces that are required through applicants?
The town's zoning bylaw does not set minimum parking requirements for electric vehicles. They would be reviewed by sustainability staff as part of the Ajax Green standard, but the degree to which they apply to this property would differ compared to, say, an apartment building, for instance. Overall, though, as it is being reviewed through a site plan application, it would be reviewed by the sustainability staff, and they would be providing the appropriate comments to the applicant.
I'm just wondering if there was consideration to move some of the surplus parking that's going into the front and exterior into the interior where the loading spaces are. Maybe you don't need all of those EV required spaces. Maybe some of the surplus parking spaces could go there.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. It's a function of separating the different types of users of the space. I think as the rear will be, I would call it, more of the occupants of the warehouse space, if you will, or the more industrial type of users. Perhaps the business owner parks back there, or maybe that's a pickup area where a visitor to the site might have their truck loaded or their van loaded back there. When we go ahead and mix sort of pedestrian traffic into the back, it would require sidewalks back there, and that becomes pretty tricky to handle that pedestrian traffic. So as much as possible, we're trying to keep the pedestrian traffic to the front doors of the units.
Okay. Ken, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm looking at Figure 2 proposed development site plan application, and I see in the reference there's industrial condo building 1 and industrial condo building 2. My question is, are there 2 units in the condo, or are there 2 buildings and there's multiple units that are going to be condominium units within that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the 2 buildings will be split into multiple units. I believe we have 26 units that will, at a future date, be applying for a plan of condo for. At this point, we're working through the site plan process. At a later date, the draft plan of condo will follow. So these units would be sold as industrial condominiums.
Okay. Any other questions from staff? Go ahead, Amanda.
The landscape buffers, could you give us a brief description of what's proposed to be part of those?
Through you, Mr. Chair. There is a picture. I was going to say a picture is worth 1,000 words. The frontage, and I will mention that this is the last site plan iteration that we have. There is still an ongoing site plan, so it's actually even been beefed up a little because we did receive comments on this iteration of the plan. But there is both sort of what I call ground-oriented shrubs, planting, flower bed type of things, as well as tree planting. I mentioned the breaking up of the parking with parking islands that will be planted as well with trees. for that 4.2 meter setback from that's being dedicated to the region, that's shown as being planted just with sod at the moment. As well, on the south side, there is a row of trees, or can't recall if it's trees or shrubs. I believe it's trees on the south side as well. The landscape architect that we've retained for the project has for sure identified that the existing buffers or the proposed buffers that we have are suitable for maintaining healthy tree growth.
Okay. Good, Amanda. Tomas?
Through you, Mr. Chair, on the parking question, so the parking spaces, will they be held as a common pool or will they be sold off in the units?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Good question. They are going to be common, first come, first serve. That's what we've done on our past projects. We find that even in a condo tenure ownership, it's better just to have public parking for visitors. The only ones that might be dedicated to each condo unit would be, you can see that in the back there is next to each loading space, there is a parking space. Those would be dedicated to that specific unit owner.
Okay. Any other questions for the agent? Okay. Seeing none. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I'll now open it up to anybody either attending virtually or here in person that wants to or wishes to speak either for or against application 479 Bailey Street East. We're on application A2925. Okay, seeing no hands in person. Is there anybody online by any chance? No. Okay. All right, then I'll look for a motion. Ken, I see you first.
I would move that we approve application 2925, subject to the conditions of approval as set out in the report as required by staff, and that we approve this on the basis that the variance application is minor in nature, desirable for the appropriate development and use of the property, and in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. Thank you.
Okay, seconded by Amanda. Any discussion on the motion as presented? Okay, seeing none, then I'll look for a vote, please. Okay, and the vote has been carried unanimously, so the motion has been approved here, and it'll now be subject to the 20-day appeal period. I'm sure you're used to that rigmarole, so good luck to you on your project. All right, have a good evening. All right, we'll now move to the last item on their agenda, minor variance application A3025. This is for 4 Barnes Drive. This is similar to an application 2 applications ago. There's a joint motion that's been put forth by, or appeal that's been put forth by town staff and the applicant of 4 Barnes Drive to defer this application as they're looking for more information to satisfy the application itself. So there isn't a full-out application that's been completed for the committee to look at and consider. So it is going to be subject to a deferral to a future meeting. And I think most of you were here when we were talking about this particular scenario 2 agenda items ago, where there will be a new notice that will be posted on the property at 4 Barnes Drive, and a new mailer that will be circulated within the area to the neighboring properties as well. Okay. Sure. Terrible. Yeah, I believe I can speak on behalf of the committee. Fully agreed with, I think it was Michelle that was here earlier, and yourself, sir. If that was me, I'd be probably infuriated just as much as you are, maybe if not more. So I will do whatever we can as committee members to, we're just civilians, if you will, as well, that are that live in the town of Ajax and represent you folks, you know, on this committee. So I will make sure that we pass that message along. I don't know why there was a delay exactly. I think the dates that we heard earlier was September 11th mail date. That would have been 2 Thursdays ago, and it was just received on Monday. So that to me is unacceptable. But again, I don't know how much of that is within the control of town of Ajax. If it was mailed out on the 11th, why was it only received on the 22nd? That's 11 days for local mail. That sounds you know, weird to me. So I'll find out from town staff if there's anything they can do to send the mailer out a touch earlier. Obviously, none of us can control Canada Post, so you know. But you know, as soon as it's in there, perhaps I don't know, Henry. Is there anything that these fine residents can do in terms of reaching out to you guys at town staff to see whether it's obviously it'll get reposted on the signboard, but is there anything else that can happen, or?
Through the chair, typically for minor variances, since the residents are aware that there is a variance being proposed for this property, if they keep an eye out on the front of the property, a notice sign is required to be posted. Typically, the sign posting will happen around the same time we mail out the notices. I can't really speak to this application, but for the previous one, it's my understanding that we would have mailed it out around September 11th. So I believe it could be perhaps labor action by Canada Post or something that's related to Canada Post. Yes, because in terms of like other delivery options, the only, like town staff can't exactly access the individual Canada Post mailbox of each resident.
Yeah, no,
so
fair enough.
That's,
Yeah.
but for this application, I'd probably recommend that residents could reach out to the planning department closer to the next committee of adjustment meeting, which will be scheduled for the last Wednesday of October, perhaps, and to just keep an eye out for a notice sign being posted on the property. Although we will definitely take the comments about the lateness of the receipt of these notices into account during the next notice circulation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, of course, of course. Yeah, so as soon as you see, and it seems like if most of you probably aren't here for the action on the other agenda items, if you were here to, with specific interest in Four Barns, I'm assuming you guys are all neighbors in that, on that street or thereabouts. Just, I don't know if any of you guys are dog owners or walkers in general, but if any one of you sees, the only thing I can request is maybe if any one of you guys sees the notice being updated on the signboard being updated, just look out for the mailer. I also have a community mailbox rather than a mailbox at my door, so it's sometimes I get lazy. I only get out there every 10 days, so sometimes it's my delay. But if you do see it, then just be on the lookout. You can also go to the town's website, or as Henry said, you can also reach out to the planning department, and they can maybe get you an email copy of the mailer, so that you guys have an electronic copy of it before it gets to you in your mailbox. So, you know, I think that's probably the best I can offer. Okay. Yeah, and thank you guys for being here. It's always great to see, whether before or against, I have no idea, but, you know, and we'll find out next time. So it's a little, you know, something we'll follow along next time this one comes up. But thank you for being here. So it just shows a lot of interest. That's amazing. So. Yeah, so just for our online community, just because we are being recorded, I'm just going to repeat the last two questions. I probably should have done it when the gentleman asked the question as well, because we normally have you come up to the podium. No, that's okay. It's my fault too, because I'm kind of, you know, just running this on the side here now. But so the first question, just for full transparency of the recording, was in regards to the mailing and the timeliness of the mailing and when it was received. And that's, town staff did confirm that we will have the notice board updated. And again, there's no control over Canada Post. We've asked the neighbors to verify whenever the date gets posted on the board, then just, look out for mailers or call town staff. The second question by the lady in last row was really around if anybody was completely against the entire project of 4 Barnes Drive that's being proposed, what can be done about it. This wouldn't be the forum, unfortunately, because again, I think you may have been around when we talked about it earlier. This particular committee only looks at the minor variances when a project is being proposed, and you heard, 2 others before this, whether it be a small residential one or big commercial ones like the one we just talked about. If that particular project has 1 or 2 things that they're not conforming to in terms of zoning bylaws, that's what we kind of hear. The entire project or would really be something you need to kind of talk to your council person, because that would be something that maybe they have more control over. But I can tell you for sure, and not insulting my committee members, but we collectively do not have that. We're not empowered to stop or hear even, the assertions on why it should be stopped, because we can't. We're not empowered to do anything about it. We're only empowered to just look at are the minor variances. For, I'll give you an example, the front lot line is one of the maximum private garage width is another one that's in this application that I'm sure you guys see. That's very specifically all we're empowered to look at. Okay. Yeah, of course. All right. Perfect. So then at this point, we are looking for a motion to defer. If I can get that from somebody in the committee. Ken. Okay, motion noted. Can I get a seconder? Bernadette, I saw you first. Any discussion on the motion as presented? Okay, seeing none, then I'll look for a vote. And the vote has been carried to defer this meeting topic to for 4 Barnes Drive to a future yet to be determined meeting of the Committee of Adjustments. All right, moving to our next agenda item of other business, new business. Can I start with town staff? Do you guys have any other business or new business for the committee? Okay, seeing none. Committee members, anything to bring to the table on new business, other business? Okay. Seeing none, then I'll look for a vote or a motion rather for adjournment. Oh, rapid fire. I saw Ken first, so can I get? I'll say Tomas was the seconder. If that's okay with you, Tomas, I'll look for a vote on adjournment. And the vote has been carried unanimously. I'd like to now adjourn this meeting at 8:03 p.m.